Welcome everybody to another episode of our Indie Dev Showcase here on Game Wisdom, where every week I make these recap videos based off of the games we play for our Wednesday night streams. Unless otherwise noted, these have all been played with press keys. And if you submit a game for me to look at for a future video and stream, please get in touch. We are beginning with the game Warriors of the Nile. This was played during the Steam Summer Festival, and it's a game that seems to be aimed at kind of the lighter side of tactical strategy. The general concept is that you're going to be controlling these three characters, each one with their own stats and abilities, and you need to get them through each map, where the maps themselves are randomly generated. When you succeed, you get taken to this tablet screen, which allows you to choose an upgrade. You can only choose one for each map, and of course they come in different rarities, different effects, and you get the picture. And your overall job, similar to that of a deck building roguelike, is to build your party out in the best way that will hopefully get you all the way to the end of the game. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that the demo that I played only consists of the battle system. It does not apparently include the kind of persistent, almost like building up a city mode that's supposed to unlock unique benefits and of course make the game easier on future plays. And I have to say, I was genuinely surprised with how much I was enjoying Warriors of the Nile. This is by no means going to be the most complicated tactical strategy game that we've played or that we've even had a chance to look at on previous indie spotlights. But it does strike that really good balance of giving the player enough depth that you have to think about each one of your moves, while still being very approachable if you're not a super hardcore fan of the genre. And I think with that point, maybe what could hurt this game for some people, as there's been complaints about the overall difficulty of the game being on the easier side. And it does seem like with how the various unit combinations and powers work, you can set up for some very game-breaking, exploiting cheese strategies with how things can play out. Again, without being able to see the whole persistent mode, I don't know how easy that makes it. But overall though, I would say if you are a fan of tactical strategy games and looking for more of a lighthearted fare, give this one a check and you may be surprised with what you find. For our next game, we turn to Jack Move. This was another Steam Festival play, and what we have here is a JRPG cyberpunk style game, where our heroine here is searching for her missing father. An evil corporation is trying to stand in her way and most likely try to take over the dystopian future. So we are going to have to kick their butts throughout cyberspace and real life any way we can. So, the general gameplay, again, this is classic JRPG design. Random encounters, fixed maps, and of course, fighting very varied kinds of enemies. Now, the kind of twist of Jack Move is that you have different abilities based on what's loaded in your deck. And enemies have different strengths and weaknesses based on essentially what their color is. You gain abilities such as you get more SAS points, because SAS is very important in a dystopian future. And you're going to look around trying to find more items and more things to use to help you. Now, from the demo, you only play as the main character. I don't know if you do end up getting a party in the full version of it. Now, the gameplay certainly works. It is a little bit on the more challenging side. A big point about it is installing new abilities that you can do at any time during combat, but it takes away your turn or uses up your turn. And again, this is important because of the fact that enemies have different resistances to your various abilities, and you also need to have defensive and healing measures in place. And the Jack move in the title comes from your super abilities that you build up a meter that you can't see because my video is blocking in the bottom left, but these are kind of your super moves that let you do crazy stuff like this. And the game definitely has a lot of charm to it. Really like the pixel art as well. There's a nice level of detail to it. And the whole system of basically crafting or rebuilding your strategies on enemy basis is really nice. I do feel it may become a little cumbersome if you start getting a lot of different skills you have to play around with. But I'm sure the developer is working on that. So overall, I really did enjoy this one. And this was another one of those surprises from the Steam Festival. And if you are a fan of good old-fashioned turn-based RPG goodness, definitely check out the demo if it is available, and keep an eye out for this one when it is released. And now for something very completely different. This is Inkulinati. And that was not easy for me to say there. And what we have is, besides this live action intro, this is a turn-based strategy game built around the idea of 700th century medieval style art doing battle with each other. And yeah, this is definitely a kooky one. First off, I love the aesthetic of this game. Kind of gives me like a Comic Zone kind of feel, the giant hand coming on to smack things or move them around. So the concept of this is that each character has their own army and their own units that they can take into the field, with more unlocks as you play. Your mission is to defeat the leader unit, either by literally pushing them off the stage, or doing enough damage to them that it kills them. Ink that you see in the upper left and upper right of like kind of the UI is your mana. And you'll need to use that in order to summon more units. And units can only be summoned basically next to their leader unit. That's again my little knight here on the left. So besides that, you have those kinds of leader powers. You can push and pull, you can smack enemies on the stage, and so on and so forth. And the game definitely has like this very crazy aesthetic going on here, and that text that you see in the upper left is just babble. Like, that's just like randomly generated stuff supposed to make things look more epic and historical, according to the store page. And the game is set up to be very much a fast-paced kind of deal, because when the apocalypse starts to happen, the book begins to burn, you need to move fast or knock somebody off the stage like that. And there's definitely some potential here for some good old, very crazy turn-based play. I believe the full version is going to have a campaign, but it will also be set up for multiplayer, more progression, characters, and so on and so forth. But I was definitely enjoying this one, and definitely interested to see how this will play out in its finished version. And other than that, there really isn't anything for me to nitpick right now, considering how short the demo was. But of some of the games we've played, definitely one of the more stylish entries. And with that, we're going to take our quick break, and when we return, we have 3 more games to look at for this Spotlight video. And now for a quick thank you to our current Patreon supporters. And if you're interested in my books on design, they are available at most major retailers. 20 Essential Games to Study is for first-time developers looking to be inspired, and the Game Design Deep Dive series covers the history and philosophy of major genres, with horror coming later in 2021. For our next game, we turn to Dandy Ace. And this was played as another demo game, and it's a very interesting one. This is essentially, what if Hades and Transistor were combined with a very Nintendo-like aesthetic to it. So this is an action roguelite where our friend here, I guess his name is Dandy Ace, is a magician who has been trapped inside of a mysterious world by his arch rival. And in order to get out, he's going to make use of all of his magical tricks and all crazy abilities to do so. So the big thing about this game, similar to that of Hades, is that you're going to be moving around using your abilities. Dodging is going to be very key here, considering how enemies are going to be attacking and reacting to you. But similar to Transistor, you get your various abilities out of these cards. The cards come in terms of various types represented by their color, the tier that denotes the overall power of it, and every card essentially has two functions. You have the ability itself if it's chosen in your deck along the bottom there, or you can attach it to another ability which will affect the properties of it, such as letting your attack do like more of a spread attack. It could kind of cause the bullets to break apart and hit multiple enemies. You could do something faster. And again, it all depends on how you properly choose your abilities and then slot them with existing ones. And that, I think, is a very nice touch. And similar to Hades and some of the other action roguelites we've played, you have persistent elements that as you play, you collect these diamonds, which in turn will unlock additional functionality, new cards, new things that can show up, and again, all that long-term progressive goodness that we've come to expect from these kinds of games. With that said, I do have a few potential nitpicks or issues. Now, keep in mind, this was played as a demo about 6 months ago, so there's a chance that these issues may be fixed since then. The first one is that while the combat certainly reminds me of Hades, it didn't feel as refined or as responsive as that game. And I had some issues where it felt like I would do a move and then I couldn't do anything for maybe like a quarter second afterwards. And that actually got me killed at the game's boss fight, or at the demo's boss. Now, with the cards, as you can see here, you are going to be kind of stopping the flow of the game to try and decide what to do quite frequently. But the overall map generation kind of felt on the basic side. And again, this could just simply be because of the demo. But part of the issue that I had was it didn't feel like I was really having the incentive to explore each area. Fighting enemies doesn't always give you rewards or drops. And it's one of those cases where fighting can become very dangerous because it takes away from your health, and you are limited in terms of your healing options until you unlock more of the persistent upgrades. With that said though, this does have some potential. I love the aesthetic of this game. It has a very great anime look and feel to it. And if you are somebody who does enjoy games like Hades, Undermine, any of the other number of action roguelites that are on the market, this could be a really solid one to pick up when it's released, I believe, at the end of March. For our next game, we have Justice Sucks Recharged. And this was played during the PAX Demo Festival, and the game is described as an action sandbox title. And this one is definitely going for all the weirdness. You play as essentially a killer Roomba whose family was killed by an evil corporation, and you have escaped in the world of 90s TV in order to get the power you need to avenge them. And I did not make any of that up. That is the story according to the store page. So the concept, or at least from this demo that we played, is that you need to go around stopping these criminals from stealing the valuables that you see in the upper right. As you clean up and basically do a good job, you'll gain power. That's the bar that's kind of filled up in the bottom there. That lets you make use of your various powers. You can also suck up objects and then spit them out at enemies in order to do damage. But your powers are going to be your main way of doing that. And yeah, this is just a very kooky game. And when you've taken out all the criminals, you then only have a few seconds in order to basically clean up all the mess you've made, which the game then rates you on. So, game is definitely going for some style here. Now, with that said, I think this is going to be one of those titles that its success is going to be dependent on where they go with this. Is there going to be more depth to these mechanics? Are there going to be new elements introduced? Or are they just going to be repeating the same gameplay loop level by level? Again, with the demo, we really couldn't see too much of this other than the wackiness that's involved here. But if you are looking for something very different, this could be a fun one to check out when it is released. And now, really switching gears, we have the demo for the game DAP. And this is a very interesting one. It, in some ways, combining the kind of rescue or follower kind of strategy of something like Pikmin with a horror or very mysterious game as well. So the story is that we are in this world trying to rescue these creatures that are called DAP, and they will say it a lot during this play. And we're trying to get them to a mysterious source, which will hopefully unlock more things or figure out what's going on. There's definitely a Dark Souls or very passive storytelling kind of vibe in this game, as you're going to have to try and figure out what is going on. So in order to do anything, you need to set fire to these areas, which will then, when the fire is out, will create these seeds at these various places, which will create more DAPs. Now, the game, as you can see at the bottom there, you have like a basic conversation system, and the more DAPs that are following you will influence how much damage you're able to do. And again, it's a game that really has its own crazy rule system for how things work. And you can charge your attack based on the number of DAPs that you have. And you'll have to collect resources that you can use for healing and so on and so forth. And it's definitely a very fascinating concept. And part of the challenge of the game is not only being able to fight the enemies, but there's areas where there's this kind of corruption that if you leave your DAPs in it too long, they turn into enemies that you will then have to kill. Now, from the demo, I don't know if this is randomly generated levels or just handmade ones. But you do have to decide which areas to go to, and I forget if there was kind of a point of no return aspect to it. But with that said, DAP is one of those games where its strengths, in terms of its unique and very unusual story and aesthetics, could be a downside to some people. As a lot of this game is going to be you trying to figure out what is going on and what are the rules to this world. And if you aren't a fan of that kind of very passive storytelling design, I don't know if you'll enjoy DAP. But it is certainly a unique game and one of the more out there concepts that I saw from the game festival. With that said, we're going to wrap up our spotlight here for this week. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to check out the games that I showed off, there'll be links to them in the description down below. And again, if you're working on a game that you'd like me to take a look at for a future stream and video, please get in touch. Check out our Discord and Patreon link down below, and come back for daily discussions on game design here, and on game wisdom, where they are in science of games. Until next time, take care.